Let me know that you can hear me loud and clear. Just a little bit of an Easter broadcast. Thought I'd fire it up since we are in a festive season right now, just to see what everyone is getting up to. Just a bit of a general chat, a bit of an update. Just going to make sure that the broadcast is connected. I think that we are actually live right now. All right, it looks like that we're good to go. Alrighty, so I'm just going to hang out here for a second just to make sure that it's all sort of going as it should. So let's just let me know in the comments section that you can hear me loud and clear. I'm making this broadcast because I just wanted to wish everybody a very happy Easter, no matter where you are or what you're doing, and let me know where you are tuned in from. I think that obviously we've had a rough couple of years, but there's also a lot in the pipeline to really look forward to as we move forward, of course, with 2023 and everything that is going to transpire in this year. So, you know, good, bad, ugly, but that's just a bit of life, isn't it? So there's Kath there. How you going? It's great to see that you're on board. Thank you very much. And we're also connected on YouTube. So, yeah, we're just going live on Facebook and YouTube. Just a bit of a general catch up. Just going to wait for some comments to come through. I'm actually not sure if we're totally connected, so I'll just give it a bit of a wait before I start talking here. Just making sure that all the software is lined up the way that it should. There's Bridge there, Bridge Walker. How you going from sunny coast Queensland? You're doing a fantastic job as always, and of course Bridge Walker was on MCJ Report. I want to say maybe about 18 months ago now. And it's great to see you in the chat. All right, looks like that we are indeed connected. So that's very good. So let me know. Do you have any plans for Easter? Any Easter resolutions? Seeing family and friends? Let me know in the comments section what you're getting up to. There's Adam there. How you going? There's Charlie. It's great to see you in the chat. Alrighty. And also a warm welcome to everybody watching on YouTube. So what's everybody getting up to over the long weekend? There's really no point to this broadcast. There's no agenda here tonight. Usually, of course, when I fire up a broadcast, I'll be talking about all sorts of things. The gates of hell opening due to the politicians in our country. But this is just a general chat just to connect with you guys, to see how you are going. The great people that follow my social media pages, and thank you very much. And I see you all, of course, when I make my post in the comments, putting your 2 cents worth, and I value your 2 cents, so keep on doing that. And there's Michael Jonas there, a great man. If you can tell by his last name, there might be a relation there. Great to see you on board, cuz. Thank you for tuning in on this this Good Friday. And it is indeed good, of course, when you can fire up a broadcast and be joined by excellent people from all over the country. So let me know where you're tuned in from. There's Rex there saying that you'll be waiting for your Easter eggs. The Easter Bunny is coming. Well, I very much hope that the Easter Bunny delivers some great eggs to you, Rex. I'm sure that you deserve it. I'm sure that you're a great bloke. I don't think I've met you, but you tuned in on Morgan's broadcast, so I'm sure that you can't be too bad. So Rex says, how are all you stayers going? What do you mean by stayers? Do you mean people staying in the Socialist Republic of Victoria? Well, I mean, that's a good question. Put in the comments where you're tuned in from. I'm definitely not going to leave the Socialist Republic of Victoria, for better or worse. You know, I say that Victoria is my home. I was born in Victoria. So here's a little fun fact. I was born in Mitcham Private Hospital in the year that has become ominous, 1984. And a lot of people have left Victoria over the past few years. It's probably at least a few 100,000 by now. I don't intend on leaving though, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody like Daniel Andrews, you're telling me a guy like that is going to drive me out of my home? I don't think so. Or maybe I'm just a sucker for punishment. Maybe you are as well. Maybe for those of us who are sticking with Victoria and staying strong, maybe we're just the type of people who would sink with the Titanic. The Titanic is clearly going down, but we're like, nah, we're going to fight to our last breath. Fight me till my last drop of blood. That's right. If you know the reference, put it in the comments. There's Teresa there saying Happy Easter. Love and cheers from the sunny coast. I would very much love to visit the Sunshine Coast. I love Queensland. I want to go back. Bridgewalker says still young. Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, I feel young. And a lot of the time I think feeling young is a mindset. For me, I try to stay active. So personally, I'm in the gym a lot and I'm lifting weights and doing all that good stuff. And I'm 38 now, but my strength feels no different as when I was in my 20s. In fact, even maybe stronger. So I think the main key thing here is to stay active, stay healthy, exercise, at least in your capacity to do so, and just keep on marching forward. Kath says you're staying in Victoria. All right, Kath, here's a good question. Why are you staying in Victoria? What is it that's compelling you to stay? So go ahead and put that in the comments. And there's Simon there asking about a certain troll who I'm not going to name on this show. Will he be watching? Who cares? I mean, this is a public broadcast. Anyone's welcome to watch. Of course, there's unsavory people out there, ladies and gentlemen. We can't do too much about that. And that's just part of life. It's almost like good can't exist without evil. It's the yin-yang concept, right? Without unsavory people, those who have bright personalities and radiant souls would not be able to shine. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Adam says we're stuffed in Melbourne. Well, maybe so, but would you prefer to get taken out on your feet or to live on your knees? Maybe that's not really a relevant question, but not really stuffed. I've been doing some figures lately, and provided that there is genuine cooperation in the next federal election, there's definitely scope for a major shift. So look, these changes don't happen overnight. I actually believe that, well, I don't believe. That believe is the wrong word. I know that the numbers check out. All right, so a lot of us, of course, are first time getting involved in politics, but I'm sticking around because I actually believe that there's a pathway forward. I believe that there is a roadmap out of this dystopian nightmare that Daniel Andrews is trying to create for Victoria, and I'm still very, very keen and motivated to contribute to that solution in my capacity to do so. And I hope that you join me. I hope that you get on board, whether it's Freedom Party of Victoria or supporting what I do on MCJ Report. You know, this isn't my first rodeo. I've been on this bandwagon before COVID-19, just so you know. I didn't just jump onto the COVID mania freak out train. No, I was observing the government for years and was already protesting Dan Andrews before all this. And I was there then, and I'm here now. So one thing you can rely on me for is definitely consistency. There's Carol there saying, you're born and bred in Melbourne. You're not going anyway. This is your home and nothing will drive you out. Carol, God bless you. I love your words. And just so succinct, so perfect. And I wish that more Victorians had your attitude. That is absolutely beautiful. Lee says, I look a bit tired. No, I'm fine. I work a lot, you know. So in addition to MCJ Report that I run on Thursday nights, and of course I'm still running the political party that I founded, Freedom Party Victoria. I also work full time, so, you know, I'm a pretty busy guy. I'm all over Melbourne. I'm here, I'm there. And tonight is just a bit of a relaxing evening. Don't feel too tired. Maybe I look a bit tired. Maybe I just look permanently tired, and probably that's because of, you know, a range of different factors. I think that YouTube is connected as well. I'm just going to take a look to see what's going on. Whether, yeah, YouTube is connected, but it's mostly Facebook. All right, so let's see. Tell me where you tuned in from. Not just like Victoria. I want to know, like suburb, towns, countries. Put it in the comments. I like to know this sort of stuff. And there's Michelle there saying good luck from Brisbane. Michelle, how you going? Brisbane is a great place. I went there for the first time last year. Really lovely. I'd love to go back. I do find it kind of weird that you don't have an upper house in your parliament. But I guess a lot of the time we don't have any real checks and balances for anything that our politicians do or our bureaucrats. So, maybe we don't need an upper house anywhere. So put your thoughts in the comments. Lily's from Perth. All right, so here's a little fun fact about your buddy Morgan. Never been to Western Australia. Never been there. And I've never been to Tasmania. I've been everywhere else in Australia apart from those two states. So definitely on my agenda is to visit both of them at some point because Australia is beautiful, right? We love our country. What a great country we live in. There's Sian right there. There's Brian Heath saying, keep up the good work. Thank you very much, sir, and a very, very happy Easter to you and your family. I hope that you are having a lovely evening. There's Jan there from Bundaberg, Queensland, of course, famous for their signature Bundaberg rum, saying enjoy your sights or enjoy your something else, keep up the good fight. Well, absolutely right. And, as I always say, Rome was not built in a day. Anything worth having is worth fighting for. Major change. It doesn't happen in one election cycle, and a lot of the time it does not happen in 2 election cycles. It requires a dedicated, focused, collaborative effort of action that must be carried out throughout the years. So I am happy to be on board this train, and I have no intention of getting off at the next station. And hopefully you will be sitting in those seats on the train as well. The train to freedom. All right, that was maybe a little bit cheesy, but I just had to say it. Kath says your mum married a local from Leanne Curry. I don't even know where that is. I'd have to look that up, but it sounds like a nice love story, and I'm happy to hear that they're still together. Hopefully they're still together. So tell me a good Easter story in the comments, and I'll read it out over the broadcast. There's Bridge saying come to Cruise Park and do a broadcast. Well, I'd love to. If enough people from Queensland want me to go, then I'll go. Not all that long ago, I went to Singleton, New South Wales, and I visited the great landmark. That's right, the Caledonian Hotel. I did a talk, and I was very, very humbled that we filled up the room and some people even drove hours to hear me speak. Very, very humbling. I felt very gracious. And I was competing with Sting that night because the famous singer Sting had a concert not too far away, which drew a pretty big crowd. And Sting has actually been somebody who was outspoken against the vaccine mandate. So he certainly won over quite a few hearts and minds due to the stance that he took. Carol says you're born and bred Melbourne. Excellent stuff. Rex says, what's going on around the world? Well, of course we see lots of trends. The trends are not consistent though everywhere around the world, and it depends what trends we're talking about. If we're speaking about the Western world and we look at countries, say Germany, west of Germany, Canada, the United States, Australia, and New Zealand, of course we see our culture going nowhere good. I probably don't need to tell you what's going on out there. You see it for yourself. Effectively, we see a big attempt to harmonize a new culture among all the Western countries, whereby I'd say God and religion is being driven out by those in power, and what's being ushered in is a new type of ideology that lots of people are submitting to as if they have found a new religion. Okay, you could call it the new religion of wokeism, promoted by the Ministry of Truth here in Australia. And of course, the collaboration is transnational, crosses borders to various intergovernmental organizations. And the only antidote is for good men and women to push back and organize and to play a role in instigating major change, because the trajectory that we're on, it's not a good one. Our young men are becoming weakened by the day. That's right. I think that we need to speak about that more. We look at the public schools and children are becoming lost. They absolutely are. Now, I've got friends who are teachers. I have friends who are relief teachers that work among many different schools. And the stories they have been telling me are absolutely horrendous and heartbreaking. Stories to the effect of children not being able to concentrate in classes, learning about woke agendas instead of, say, Australian history or tools for the real world. A massively growing number of students who are confused about their gender, who seem to not know what gender they are. Some of my friends have told me that in many classrooms throughout Victoria, as high as 25% of students do not know what gender they are, or they identify as a member of the opposite sex. And when you look at the high rates of divorce, and if I'll speak on the topic of males, because I am one and I've got 38 years of experience being a male, and I know that without any shadow of a doubt, there's most definitely a crisis with young men growing up in fatherless homes, not having adequate male role models, heading off to school, having the woke indoctrination forced onto them, being made to feel that they need to be feel guilty for being male, or having some sort of made up toxic masculinity that needs to be curtailed, and they should become more gentle and more feminine. And meanwhile, across the pond in China, Chinese students as young as 7 years old are learning how to assemble Glocks, and here in Australia, we're assaulting our young generation. So I've got some ideas for taking action on this. I think that we need to reclaim the narrative. These young children, they shouldn't be learning about these theoretical woke agendas. They should be learning skills for the real world. They should be learning martial arts. They should be building their self-confidence. This whole theory that gender is some type of social construct has been cooked up for a long time in the basement of Marxist ideology. The theory that there is no such thing as truth. And that's what they say, these Marxist academics. They say truth doesn't exist, and everything around us in the world is entirely subjective, based on the perspective of whoever is interpreting an energy, an object, a person, could be a tree, a road. There's no such thing as truth. That's what they say. The truth is fluid, and it can change, and nothing can be measured. There's no such thing as a man. There's no such thing as a woman. These are all social constructs. And if you disagree with me, I'll smash you in the head. And so we need to reclaim our kids, because I guarantee you, in Russia, in China, they are allowing their children to develop as normal human beings. And the leaders of those countries, they're laughing at us. Putin and Xi, they're sipping wine and they're saying to each other, well, we won't need to fire a bullet because the West is well along the road to destroying itself. Rex says, here is something for all of us. We identify as living, right? Living. Well, that's true. And the best way to live is to roll your sleeves up and get involved in a fight that is bigger than you. Bigger than you, bigger than your friendship group. I say that it's a fight for the nation. And there's Jess J saying, teachers are calling parents about problem kids and the parents are at the pokies. Parents need to take responsibility. Well, you're right. Pokies, troublesome. I'll tell you my opinion on the pokies, and you may agree with it. Maybe you don't. I'm not a fan of the pokies. I never have been. I consider pokies to be a predatory industry that preys on the vulnerable and is responsible for tearing apart countless amounts of families, I consider the industry of pokies has also been directly responsible for countless amounts of suicides. Now, a typical libertarian would interject at this stage and say, well, Morgan, everybody is free to make their own choices. And if somebody wants to put their life savings down the pokies, and that's their choice, and they should be allowed to do it. So I don't see it that way. Of course, I believe that as Australians, we are free to make our own decisions. But I do not believe that certain corporate billionaires have the right or have the, quote, freedom to capitalize off what can only be described as a predatory industry that preys on the vulnerable and capitalizes off the weak. I don't believe it should exist for the same reason I don't believe that heroin dealers should exist. Okay, so by the logic of the typical libertarian that will say, oh, well, everyone makes their own decisions, live with the consequences of your decisions, etc. By that logic, heroin dealers should be allowed to flood their drugs all throughout the country, and when we see the subsequent deaths and overdoses, well, it was person A's decision to take those drugs, and therefore that's just the way it goes. We say no. We want to punish drug traffickers because they are capitalizing off other people's misery. So that's how I see the pokies. And I was having discussions with Aidan McClendon, who formerly served as the Deputy Leader of Freedom Party of Victoria and formerly served a term in the Queensland Parliament. He had a policy back from his tenure in the Queensland State Parliament to abolish local pokies machines. What do you think about that? I actually love it. Not to completely abolish them though, so let me explain. Here's how it would work. Every pokies machine has a license number, right? So under this policy, what you do is you shift all the pokies machines. Let's just use Victoria for an example, in the state of Victoria, and you relocate these machines to what's called a gaming destination. All right, so for example, Las Vegas is a gaming destination. Macau in China is a gaming destination. What we know is that concentrating gambling in gaming destinations reduces gambling in other parts of the country. Okay, so the idea is the licenses from the pokies machines, they're not cancelled, but they're transferred in exchange for building and establishing an Australian version of Las Vegas. All right, so you set up an Australian version of Las Vegas. Maybe you set it up somewhere near Mildura or somewhere else. That could be up for debate. And this new city will house all the pokies machines. So if somebody wants to play the pokies, they need to take a holiday to this Australian version of Las Vegas, where they will be more likely to set a budget. They say, all right, I'm going on a holiday. I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to gamble. I'm going to play some tables. I'm going to play some machines. Spend your money, blow your money, go back home, get back to work. That is destination gambling or destination gaming. It's the model that's used in China. Okay, so gambling in most regards is illegal in China. So the Chinese government, very smart, set up Macau, right, which effectively was a photocopy of Las Vegas, and Macau is a hub for Chinese business people, international business people to go and let off some steam. All the major casinos are there, and it's actually a really nice place. I've been there. It's a great place. And that's what I say we need in Australia. So what do you think about that concept? Would you be happy if we got rid of the pokies machines out of all the pubs, all the RSLs, and shifted them to an Australian version of Las Vegas, a new Australian city? That's the sort of thinking and vision that we need in this country. Put your thoughts in the comments and tell me what you think about that. There's Belinda there. How you going? Just refreshing here. Steve says, let's do it. The problem is, though, our politicians don't have a vision. You look at countries like China, the government has a 100-year vision for the country. Our politicians, mostly, are incapable of seeing past the next election cycle. Because as soon as a typical Australian politician is either elected or re-elected, they're straight away thinking, how am I going to get my seat back after the next election cycle? And in this country, it most definitely appears that self-interest rules the day. And you see one politician after another selling their soul. That's right. In fact, Scott Morrison before made a post about Easter and a post about praising God. And I wrote Scott Morrison a little comment. I said, ScoMo, you left God at the door when you became Prime Minister. And that's just the truth. These people trade what they claimed to believe in, and they have no vision. No vision, that's right. We have one of the most underdeveloped economies for any first world nation in the world. That's right. If you look at the complexity of our economy in terms of our manufacturing and industrial diversity, I believe we're ranked about 60th, wedged all the way down the chain. And there's only 200 countries in the world. But there's third world developing countries that have a broader range of services and manufacturing capability as opposed to what we have in Australia. And that's because Australia is the lucky country, lucky as in by grace of God, we happen to be home to the world's most abundant and diverse resources. But unfortunately, instead of utilizing those resources to fuel Australian innovation, what do? We dig them out of the ground, we don't refine them, we put them on boats, and we send the resources overseas so that other countries can exceed in innovation. And those who do seek to create and innovate in Australia, at one point or another, they get sick of our taxation laws and they move overseas. And then we get left with nufties in Parliament. And makes you frustrated, but that's just the truth. There's Anne, how you going? There's Alex Vayner, who's a mate of mine from back in the day. We date back a long time, more than 20 years. Good to see you there, my man. Hope that you're doing well. He's a good man, Alex. Great that you're here. There's Jess saying farmers will lose their farms in Mildura. Well, farmers are unfortunately losing their farms everywhere, and that can be attributed to the disastrous policies over the years, including but not limited to water. Here's a little not so fun fact for you. Between 2010 and 2020, Victoria lost over 10,000 farms, and it was mostly in relation to farmers not being able to afford water during the droughts, because of course during the non-droughts, corporations, including banks but also the government, were very busy buying up water bonds, and when the droughts hit, those bonds went through the roof, and a lot of people made money. A lot of people who had never been on a farm in their life, who had spent their entire lives working in banks behind computer screens, never seen water at all, were able to basically trade, pressing buttons on a keyboard in front of a computer screen, and capitalized off this water market. I actually think it's unconstitutional, and I don't throw that word around lightly, but there's clauses in our constitution to safeguard the commercialization of specifically water, but apparently our constitution doesn't really count for much these days. There is Alessandra. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Before pokies were legal in Victoria, people would go to Albury Wodonga for the weekend and play pokies. Yeah, well, I mean, that's destination gambling. So let's just say that we drew a border around Albury Wodonga. That's where gambling is legal for Victoria and New South Wales. That would boost tourism to Albury Wodonga, so the local communities would thrive. We would no longer see pensioners at 2 a.m. in the morning at their local pub or RSL, sadly putting their entire pension down those pokies machines. And I say that destination gambling would be an asset to our country and would save lives. And let's face it, who wouldn't want an Australian version of Las Vegas right here at home? Aiden coined the term Oz Vegas. I don't know what you think about that. I don't mind it. Or maybe you call it something different, such as Sovereign City or something like that. I don't know. Something cool, right? Southern Cross City. And I would be all for it. Bring the casinos in. Not just the casinos, but you could have sports stadiums, theatrical performances. I would like to see it. And why not dream, right? If you're going to dream, you may as well dream big. There's Rex there. There's Lauren, how you doing? Saying that you emailed a letter to the LNP Shadow Minister. What did you ask? There's Steve. Yeah, you're right. Our industries have been sent overseas. We're in sold out. Sold down the river, ladies and gentlemen. Sold down the river. All right, what else do we have there? Grafton. How you going, Con? Oh, AJ. How you going, AJ? Great to have you on board. Thank you very much for being here. Yes, I know you by AJ. That's fantastic. I hope that you're doing really well and having a great Easter. Kat says exactly right for these fake Muppets trying to run our country. They don't care about the Constitution. Well, that's right. They don't care about anything. Especially you. That's right. They care about keeping their seat. You know, they think they're very important. But they don't care about you. Oh, okay, Lauren. So you wanted to message about 15-minute cities. Yeah. Well, the concern we have, right, in relation to 15-minute cities. Right, so we know that the federal government has a 2050 net zero agenda. We know that. We know the government has been very aggressive in putting carbon limits and restrictions on a variety of companies from several industries. Okay? We're aware of the program known as carbon credits, all right, whereby if a certain company exceeds their carbon limit, that company can purchase carbon credits from other companies that have not hit their carbon limit. Okay, and that's sort of how water allocation used to work before the government decided to create a new stock market for trading water bonds. All right, so of course, the people who end up paying for these carbon restrictions are consumers who end up feeling it on the hip pocket, all right? Because any increases to the cost of business will always be passed on to the consumer, which furthers the strain on the cost of living. But very suspiciously, we have not heard the government speak a great deal in relation to curtailing individuals' carbon emissions output. So why do you think that is? We hear the government yapping on about businesses, but if we look at individual Australians collectively, we, as a people, all 26 million of us, we are the biggest emitter of CO2 in the country. So, therefore, if the government is serious about achieving net zero by 2050, then the government will have to come up with a plan to radically curtail the carbon output per Australian individual. Does that make sense? So here in Australia, right, the average person emits 15 tons of carbon per year. All right. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm just telling you how it is. So 15 tons per year. Yet the IPCC and a bunch of international climate change think tanks that, of course, are funded by the usual suspects, such as George Soros, have strongly advocated for personal carbon usage to be reduced to 2 tons per year. So let me ask you a question at home. What would you need to change in your lifestyle to reduce your carbon output from 15 tons per year all the way down to 2 tons per year? What type of changes would you need to make? Which brings me to my next point, which is the concept mostly referred to as personal carbon allowance, right? Or PCA, originally developed in the UK by so-called environmental economists in the late 1990s. The concept of having a personal carbon allowance is that individuals will be restricted from exceeding a certain level of carbon outputs, say per annum. All right, so every individual under this program, under this concept, would be restricted from doing certain things in life. And one of the grand proposals or ideas for monitoring this usage is, of course, to have the usage monitored digitally and stored in a central database via banking systems. All right, so for example, MasterCard has already rolled out a carbon credit card. All right, so instead of the focus being on a spending credit limit, the focus is now on a carbon limit. All right, so for example, if you've got this MasterCard, every time you use it, you contribute to your carbon quota that you've been allocated. All right, so if you go and purchase a television, that will eat up some of your carbon allowance. If you purchase a car, that will eat up more. If you purchase a plane ticket, then that will eat up a significant portion of your carbon allowance. So the problem is, what happens if you exceed your carbon allowance? Will you be cut off from accessing goods and services? Will you be forced to purchase carbon credits from other individuals? What if you can't afford carbon credits? What about the compatibility with our human rights? Will such a program be compatible with our basic rights, such as our freedom of movement, our freedom of privacy, our freedom to live in happiness and peace? So, these are the questions. And then when you think about the concept of 15-minute cities, you do tend to wonder whether or not there's a correlation between the notion of a personal carbon allowance and a scenario whereby residents are not able to travel beyond 15 minutes of their home, because any long distance drive or any travel will eat through your personal carbon allowance and push you closer to your limit. So therefore, all of a sudden, a 15-minute city starts to make sense. And will it be voluntary? Well, right now there's certain apps that you can download voluntarily onto your phone that will help track your carbon footprint. People can voluntarily sign up to a MasterCard that keeps track of your carbon footprint. But I don't have any faith that any type of measure like this will remain voluntary. Of course, it was Scott Morrison, the former Prime Minister, who came out early in the piece and declared that Australia does not have a mandatory vaccination policy. And then what happened next? Mandatory vaccinations. So the government can't be trusted. And if the government tells you, hey, this is voluntary, and be a good steward of the environment and keep a track of your carbon footprint, you would have every reason to doubt them and every reason to be concerned that potentially these measures will become mandatory and enforced, right? And so you'll be thinking, well, how can I fight back against this? This sounds horrible, right? Who would want to be restricted from taking a long drive? I drove to northern New South Wales a few weeks ago. Why did I do it? Because I'm a free man. That's right. I live in freedom. I wanted to drive. I didn't want to fly. I wanted to be out on the open road. So I did it. and that was no one's business. No one's business apart from mine, and the people that traveled to see me. So one thing that needs to happen, right? If indeed this personal carbon allowance is coming, is more than any time ever before, human beings need to fight in order to keep cash alive. All right, because of course, if you're using cash, that is a form of payment that is not tracked or monitored by the government. As the saying goes, cash is king. There's also another sneaky way to offset your personal carbon allowance. You know that you always hear about offsetting carbon emissions, but to offset your carbon allowance, you got to go back to the good old days of bartering. You know, you give me a bottle of wine and I'll give you a bag of rice or a steak. Or you give me a bag of apples and I'll give you a bunch of bananas or whatever, right? And then in addition to that, of course, there'll be, various people trying to hack the system. I mean, it's always a battle between government and hackers when it comes to this sort of stuff. But the government will probably be really encouraging people to purchase electric vehicles. So I wonder if there'll be a carbon allowance applied to the lithium mining industry. I wonder if they'll be subject to carbon limitations. And if so, what will those limitations be? And if they're significant, then what will that result in relation to the increase of the increased cost of mining lithium, which of course is the key component of these batteries? These are the questions that we don't have answers to, ladies and gentlemen. I can guarantee you that nobody in Canberra does. And we've seen, unfortunately, a very weak opposition in our country. So the only way to fight back against it is for an alternative, right? And you know what's coming next. Head on over to freedomparty.net.au, sign up, become a member. You will be allocated to an action group. We are getting back into action. We're rolling up our sleeves. We're putting our boots on the ground, and we're not going away without a massive fight. So get involved. There you go. That's my little speech on our personal carbon allowance. Pretty interesting stuff, right? I mean, I think it's interesting. Maybe you think it's interesting. Hopefully you do. But what I do want to say is that it's not all doom and gloom. And life is beautiful. It's Easter. Australia is beautiful. We have great people in our lives. And, sometimes you just can't take all this stuff too seriously. You know what I mean? Yes, we have an inept government that's not fit for purpose and frankly shouldn't be there. But you should never allow these people, these scoundrels, to actually put you in a bad mood. Never. You need to hold your own in this world. Keep your chin up high. Be happy. Life is beautiful. When you see the sun rise in the morning and set in the evening, that's a blessing from God and something that everybody needs to be very, very happy and grateful for, right? So no matter how angry you may be at any one point at the government, you look at the beautiful gift of life and you realize that that is something that nobody can take away from you ever, ever. And in relation to what's going on in schools, well, you know how I feel about it. I say we need to do away with the drag queen story time for kids, and kids need to be spending more time with their grandparents. I'd much prefer story time with our war veterans. How about that? What about our courageous Vietnam War veterans? I mean, these are the types of people who should be telling stories to children, the people in our country who have such a rich experience in life and who genuinely understand firsthand how precious life is, how close death can be at any one point in time. That's what I'd love to see in our country. And we want to see kids being kids. I'm very concerned about young men in our country, and I want to do something. I'm concerned about the rate of divorce. I'm concerned about the number of young men growing up without a father figure. I'm concerned about the woke agendas being forced onto them. Of course, I'm concerned about young women as well. But as I mentioned before, I've been male for 38 years. And so obviously I understand about the experience. And obviously the policy that I put forward for introducing martial arts in schools was very ambitious, and it could only happen with, people like you and me having a serious presence in Parliament. But I think there needs to be perhaps a new organisation, a mentoring organisation that can help young people. We're living in a time whereby children are taking record amounts of antidepressant drugs. They're being prescribed with poison. Whereas what they really need is to just be kids and to be left alone by these insidious agendas that have permeated throughout our society and our culture. Meanwhile, the shareholders of big pharmaceutical companies are just sitting there laughing all the way to the bank. These greedy, evil people, right, capitalizing off this drug trade, right? And if you want to ask me, these people are no better than heroin dealers. And it's not the answer. The answer is not to keep prescribing kids with these drugs. Of course, we know in Victoria there's a program known as Doctors in Schools. We need to do away with that. Did you know that in Victoria, a child can have a secret relationship with a doctor without their parents' consent? And that doctor can prescribe young kids, right, provided the kid is considered a mature minor, and who the hell knows what that means anyway. The doctors can prescribe these kids with all sorts of drugs, including, but not limited to, synthetic hormones, hormone blockers, antidepressants, drugs for ADHD, contraceptives, right? Like birth control, vaccines, all sorts of stuff. And so I think the only solution is bringing back family values and putting the family unit at the forefront of society and pushing the government backwards. We can do it. We can do it, and we must do it. And if you don't believe it can happen, then you may as well go and move to a country that is focused on family values, such as countries in South America. Absolutely, just a couple off the top of my head. Brazil, Colombia, the family units are very strong over there. Also, Eastern Europe, they have strong families. They're not buying into all this garbage. Or you stay here and you fight. There's Anthony Rosso saying EV vehicles are among the biggest scams, he says. Look at how much of an environmental disaster mining for lithium is. A lot of water, right? Julie says, God bless Australia. And I say, God bless Julie over there. What do you guys think about this whole arrest situation with Donald Trump? What do you make of that? You know what I think? I think Trump will beat the charges and will come out firing on all cylinders. I think the United States government, they have just secured Donald Trump's re-election in the next United States presidential election. That's what I think. This whole thing with the whole Stormy Daniels, to me, like, it seems pretty far-fetched. It seems like the charges are quite trumped up. All right, I just had to say that, the trumped up charges. And you look at the crimes of Joe Biden and the Hillary Clinton crime family. It's no secret that lots of Hillary Clinton's former staff, one way or another, ended up with bullets in their heads, and nobody knows what happened, right? It's no secret that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has been to China, has been to Ukraine, has had many documents uncovered from his laptop, damning conflicts of interest for a president's son to be involved in business negotiations with these foreign governments. Yet that seems to be completely fine. Joe Biden's able to get away with it. But Trump, on the other hand, may or may not have paid off this individual that goes by the name of Stormy Daniels. And he's now facing charges and potential jail time. But I very much hope that Trump is successful and comes back swinging more so than any time ever before. Steve reckons that Biden and Clinton will be arrested. Well, if they are, I'll be definitely here drinking a beer. Not a fan of those people. I don't like them. Don't like them. They're makes me feel concerned. I mean, I've always been a supporter of Australia's relationship with the United States, right? But I look at Joe Biden, I look at the types of characters that are occupying Congress, and I say to myself, this is a dangerous government that I'd prefer Australia has nothing to do with. A Trump government, I'd be in favour of. Absolutely. And Sharon says you can't wait. All right, guys. Anyway, happy Easter. I hope that you all are in great spirits. As I said, don't let the system get you down. Don't take things too seriously. Enjoy the fight. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for your friends. We're all Australians here. We have the Eureka fighting spirit in us. And I'm going to wrap this broadcast up. But I'll be back soon. I was having a chat with my buddy, the Aussie Cossack. We're going to do a bit of an online talk soon. So keep an eye on my social medias. If you're not subscribed, click the like button. Make sure you click the bell notification. And I'll catch you on the next broadcast. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Happy Easter. And have fun.